My name's Terri King, and I got into EMS in 1996 after a shooting in my classroom.
Do you want to share this story?
I can. It's kind of a long story, but it's back in the day, 94, when school shootings weren't a thing. And this young man happened to be out with his friends and stole a weapon from a house. They robbed the house. He brought it to school to sell, didn't know how to work it. And he was in the classroom next to mine. The gun went off and the bullet came through the wall and hit two of my students. And it was an anatomy and physiology class. And so when EMS came in, I kind of understood what was going on and took an EMT class after that, and then got bit by the bug.
You got bit by the EMS bug.
I did.
And so you worked as a paramedic for a while and you did some clinical practice type stuff with Williamson County?
I did. So I was an EMT for 3 years and did some first response stuff at the University of Texas, and went to paramedic school and got hired by Williamson County EMS in 1999. I worked on the truck for a while, and then being an educator, I got pulled back into education and worked my way up the ladder to clinical practice and did a lot of training there.
So clinical practice, if somebody's new to EMS, tell us a little bit about what clinical practices covers and what they do.
So it's a pretty broad spectrum department. We hire new hires. We make sure that they're ready to do work on the truck. We inform them on everything they need to do as far as what the medical director wants, their medical practice, how they treat patients, how to write reports, and just about everything. We also did the continuing education to make sure that they stayed up with all the latest tools, the trade that we brought onto the trucks, and also the practice.
One of the things that we've seen with EMTs and paramedics is they're really good at being EMTs and paramedics, but some of them want to start teaching. And there's always this fear about, I don't know enough, I'm not good enough, I'm not smart enough to teach. What would you say to those people?
So you got to work your passion. I mean, if they have a passion to teach, then it's real easy to learn what you need to teach. EMS is in basically two big parts, right? So you have the skills, you have the A&P knowledge, the first aid knowledge, and then you have your passion for feet. And really, to be an EMT or a paramedic, you've got to work two of those passions. So you have to have passion for yourself, right? You have to want to learn to do the best things that you can for your patient. You also need to take care of yourself. So EMS is not a kind profession to medics. You're going to see a lot of things that you never thought you would see. You see the best and the worst in people. You see some pretty horrific things, so you have to learn how to take care of yourself. So once you get that knowledge down on how to take care of a patient, then you develop the passion on why you take care of the patient. And then when you express that passion in the classroom, you're an educator. I mean, you share your passion and you make it important to the student.
How do you get over the fear of speaking in public, especially to sometimes your peers?
So that was a big evolution for me. When I first started teaching back in 1980 in public school, I was one of those educators who stood behind the podium. And so eventually they got rid of the podiums and I learned to, talk to the students. So basically the short answer is you just got to keep doing it.
Mm-hmm.
And you're going to have questions you can't answer, and you can't be afraid of saying, hey, we're going to look it up at the break and I'll get back to you. Education is not knowing everything.
No, and I think that's one of the fears that most people have is that they feel like they have to know it all. And I don't know is a fair answer, even though some people are afraid to say it. And in this age, if you say something wrong, somebody's going to call you out in 30 seconds, whereas before they would just take it as gospel, but it's not.
Yeah, the age of AI.
The age of AI.
They will look up everything you say and, like you said, call you out on it if it's not correct. AI is becoming a big part of the classroom, and there's good and bad things about it. The good thing is that we have instant access to everything. The bad thing is that not all of it's correct out there. So they have to be careful when you're looking things up to determine, is this really true?
Yeah, I do worry about the new generation coming out that if you don't know enough about EMS and you just look at AI, those hallucinations can take you down some rabbit holes. And that if you don't have that background, you're not going to call BS.
Right. Or have somebody to dispel that med. This isn't correct because
Yeah,
type of thing.
absolutely. What advice would you have for somebody who's just starting out as an EMT or a paramedic and they are afraid and they don't have that assertiveness to run the call? Especially as I had a doctor on her, she was kind of small in stature. And what did you do to establish that command presence?
So that's a hard thing. And they have to know it's a transitional thing and it'll come with practice. But basically, care enough to know why you're doing what you're doing. Why is the medicine that you're going to give this patient, how does it work? What are you going to talk to the patient about? And for younger people who don't communicate well, they have to learn that communication. And it's one of those things where you just do it and it's repetition. And the more confidence that you have in your ability to practice medicine, then your command presence is going to take over there. The other thing is learn your people's names. That was another thing that was hard for me at the beginning. And so now I express that to the students. You can't say somebody do this or hey you.
Yeah.
Because everybody, if you say hey you, everybody's going to look behind, right?
Right.
So learn people's names, communicate well, and it's just with practice. And everybody's afraid of making mistakes. And just know that you're going to make one. And then how you work through that as it happens.
In clinical practices, you do a lot of QA and QI. And so
Right.
when somebody messes up and they come into your office, how did you deal with that? How did you decide this is something we can remediate versus something this needs to be terminated for?
Okay, so the medical mistakes, we can remediate those. The bad customer service, you get one warning after that because there's no excuse for treating somebody poorly. And, it's an emotional intelligence that they have to take into the call. Because you signed up to be a public servant and they need to understand what that means. And there's too many old timers that teach bad habits when you have those late night calls that aren't really anything for you.
Mm-hmm.
Take care of it. Move on down the road. Don't make it about you. And that's where emotional intelligence comes in.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, and I want to piggyback onto that. Back to the instructor idea that when you're an instructor, if you're making it about you, it's wrong.
Correct.
If you say, I'm going to go in and I'm here for you, it takes the pressure off of you. And you say,
Absolutely.
I'm going to feed you a little something. Here's a little morsel. I'm not an expert. I mean, there's stuff I don't know, but here's a little something to whet your appetite and feed you something.
And be excited about it.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm excited to teach you this.
Yeah.
This is something I learned so long ago, but you're brand new. And so, when you ask somebody, how did you know, when you know everything or you don't?
I'd love.
And be passionate with the students on, if you say, I go back to my 5-year-old self and know what I know now,
Mhm.
I'm the resource for that.
Yeah.
I've given it to you ahead of time. And we're going to learn in scenarios so that you don't, you'll be reminded of it on the street.
Yeah. That's
time
true.
and time again.
Yeah.
But being excited to get them ahead, that's what education is about.
Your enthusiasm comes across. One of the best things I've ever seen is a video, and the teacher, as he's approaching his classroom, you can see he's kind of having a bad day. You can tell by his posture. As he approaches the door, he touches the door frame, and it was like his anchor that I'm on stage. And all of a sudden, his state completely changed.
Right.
And he stood up and he was proud and put a smile on his face. We're the same way in EMS, but teaching is similar in that you're on stage and you have to be an actor. You're going to have some bad days. You might have had a fight with a friend or a loved one, and you have to go in there and just, put that behind you and
Right.
deal with it.
Right, because it's not about you at that time.
It's not about you.
Just like it's not about you when you walk into that patient's home.
Right.
It's about them. It is all about them. And so, you have to be excited about going in there and taking care of them and showing them that,
Yeah.
kicking the dog as opposed to taking care of the dog
Kick it.
before, to make sure
Yeah.
that the patient knows that the dog is taken care of. You don't need to worry about it. We got this.
Yeah.
It's about you right now and getting you to the care you need.
Yeah. And Terri, as we start to wrap up, you were on the hiring committee and were involved with a lot of interviews
Right.
for new
Right.
paramedics. What advice do you have for somebody when they show up for that interview?
So practice it ahead of time. Think about answers that you're going to have for similar questions. Most of them are staged interviews. You can go on YouTube, you can do ChatGPT, Copilot, whatever, and say, give me some examples of structured interview questions and how would you answer it? The most common one that people can't answer is tell me about your strengths. Or tell me about your weaknesses. And actually what they need to remember is a strength can be a weakness. If you're, very picky, you're going to nitpick something to where you can't move on and resolve.
What's your best advice on how to answer what's your weakness, especially in an EMS type setting?
So it's like never tell them that I can't remember stuff under stress. Right?
Right.
So you take a strength like I'm very analytical.
Yeah.
And so that's good when you're learning, but when you're taking care of a patient, it's not good. And so you have to use that. So I'm very analytical. That's my weakness. Then it's, it stalls my patient assessment.
Yeah.
And so I have to work past that. So that's how I get past that week.
My favorite one was always saying something like, well, I'm really good with computers. There's rarely a computer program that I can't figure out, but don't ask me to build one because I couldn't go to Radio Shack or anything like that and build one. And it's kind of funny because people go, well, we weren't asking you to do that. Oh, well, okay, then I'm not great. I can't build a computer, so I'm not that person.
Right.
So.
But my last piece of advice is show enthusiasm. We learn something about the system that you're going to go do the interview at. Learn about that company. I see that your motto is respect, care, and serve. I just think that's wonderful because we always liked it when people knew about us. I want to come here because I like your motto, or I like the way you take care of the medics, or that you give CE, paid CE.
Yeah.
So learn things like that about the system. And
that's really great advice. We could do a whole podcast, I think, and we'll probably do one on resumes and interviews.
Right.
And the one I always ask is have a question to ask them. Because the people who just sit there and go, do you have any questions? You go, no. You're hiring them.
Right.
You're interviewing them because you're going to work for them for a long time.
Right.
If it's a bad date, then cut it off after the first date.
Right.
Right.
And I saw a YouTube video where it was a leadership podcast, and they talked about what kind of questions you can ask and have them written down.
Do you have any suggestions on good questions?
Don't ask them how much I get paid because that's posted everywhere. So ask them about, what happens if I have a bad call? What kind of things do you have in place to help me through that bad emotional time? Or wonder if something happens to me, what kind of things do you do for my family or what's available to my family?
Sure. I've heard on panel interviews to ask, what's your favorite thing about working here?
Right. There's that.
For what's a typical day at this agency look like? What can I expect?
Yes.
Yeah.
But they know how to get online. They just need to research it.
Yeah.
Be prepared.
Yeah.
It's like taking a test.
Yes.
How much do you really want to be them?
Yeah. Well, Terri King, we are here because of you. EMTS Academy has a paramedic school because of you. And you said yes to us years ago as the ALS coordinator when we were just a fledgling school, and you took a chance on us. So we're really grateful for that. And now you're doing our clinical coordination. So again, we're grateful for that. And thank you for being on the podcast and sharing your wisdom.
Pleasure, and happy 25th anniversary.
Well, thank you.
You guys have built this into a great place. It gives a lot of students opportunities that they don't normally have.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Terri.
All right, you're welcome.